everyone. And I'm Meenal Maheshwari. I'm a business lawyer with more than a decade of experience in working with different businesses and resolving every issue around any commercial matters. And I'm here to moderate a panel on the occasion of International Women's Day on a very relevant topic, which is gender pay inequality, which kind of means that when women get paid lesser than men for doing the exact same work, and the gap that is created in the incomes of women as compared to men, there's a gap that is created, and that's the gap that we are here to discuss today with and I'm joined by a formidable group of women lawyers, and I'm so excited to be here and discuss this issue. But before I direct questions to my to all the co-panelists, I just wanted to give an insight into this layered and nuanced topic, because gender pay gap can be of two kinds when you're judging when you're trying to decide what is the gap between the pays of men and women for doing the same work. One is adjusted gender pay gap, and another is unadjusted gender pay gap. Unadjusted gender pay gap is simply, how many women are working in the same field and how many men are working in the same field and what's the difference in their pay. However, the adjusted pay gap is a lot more nuanced, because what it calculates is that how many women started to work in the same field, and then how many could not continue because of social reasons or because of any other economic reasons or certain societal reasons, or maybe the workplace environment per se. And it calculates all of those women, the pay of all of those women who started to work but dropped off or continued, and it compares with the number of men that continue to work in the same field. And that's the more nuanced and probably the correct way. Maybe let's take the panel's view on this as to how we sort of, calculate the gender pay gap. So just to get the conversation started, I wanted to, the first question, I would love to sort of have some views. Probably let's start with Shweta. Shweta, what do you think about, what do you think are the underlying, what is the underlying cause of gender gap in the corporate white collar jobs in our world? What do you think are the reasons why there is a big gap? Because it's supposed to be 23%. So what are your views?
So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for organizing this conference on an issue which is so important and relevant. And I think it is now time for us to start acknowledging that all days are Women's Days, and it is not necessary that we only celebrate Women's Day on a particular day, because that is when we are trying to isolate ourselves and trying to identify that we need one day to be able to celebrate women. I think all of these days of the year, 365 days of the year, is Women's Day. So having said that, I mean, the question that you have raised, I think the genesis is to go back, I mean, to the times when the evolution of men and women has happened. And from there on, if you try and understand how women has been treated by the society over a period of time, it has never been equal. So when you are not being treated as equal as to genders, then there is no question of even, talking about the pay to be equal. So I think that is where the first and foremost, the genesis is. Of course, thereafter, there are a lot of other reasons, right from the lack of opportunity in education, to the lack of opportunity in work, to the lack of, the kind of societal barriers, the societal challenges that women have, and the deep-rooted mindset that I would, want to attribute. Now, if we look at the kind of some kind of statistics that has been floating around with respect to this, and I think ILO has been coming up with this kind of reports with respect to, there being a gender gap and the reasons for that. I think still, when we start to work, we have our challenges, and I had heard since morning the kind of challenges that women face in their profession, and even being in the profession. I think those are the kind of challenges which also pulls down our ability to demand or the ability to negotiate with respect to the pay. So if we are not available 24/7 for the kind of work that is requiring us to be present 24/7, then you cannot be demanding the same kind of money for that. And if you compare that with a male colleague who is able to dedicate that the entire amount of time, he of course will have a preference over a women colleague in terms of the payment. So those not just that, but there are so many other factors also. We also lack a certain amount of aggressiveness when it comes to demanding a certain pay package. I think we are more compromising, we are more adjusting to what is being offered to us, and we take what comes our way. So I think that is also another challenge. Our maternity requirements, our family requirements, and I think there is also a certain mindset that is there in the society, that women are not able to handle the same amount of burden as a male colleague would be. So it's a typical gender stereotypical mindset that is also there, which probably reduces our ability to demand the kind of money or the kind of parity in terms of payment as we should. So these are some of the factors, of course, that I see immediately to be the reason why we still have in unequal gender pay in the white collar or any profession for that matter. I think except for the government jobs, for all the other professions, it has been a truth, a harsh truth for us. So that is how I see it.
Yes, I absolutely agree. But my mom is a government officer. I mean, she works at the Reserve Bank, and so is my dad. And actually, maybe the pay grade scale is equal, but there also I have seen promotions being a big problem for women, most likely. So yes, it may be on the face of it that it is equal, but there are disparities even when every topic that you sort of broach, right? The further deeper you go into it, you realize that what is on paper is not really the truth. So I agree with you, Shweta. Absolutely agree that there's so many factors that go into why this pay disparity is there. And Rachika, I would love to hear from you. I mean, do you experience this gender pay gap even in law firms, like in corporates? As Shweta was mentioning, these sort of experiences are there where women get paid to do the lesser work. But have you come across times where you thought even law firms have the same culture?
Meenal, first of all, thank you so much for setting the ground for this discussion, because the way you explained adjusted and unadjusted gender pay gap it's very essential for us to first understand that it's gender pay gap does not just mean that when you and I are working at the same level, both of us are getting different salaries. It means much more than that. And I think from that perspective, while I have not directly or personally faced or experienced a gender pay gap in law firms, but what happens in law firms is the fact that the pressures are very different. The fact that there is no flexibility, there are strenuous work hours. A lot of women tend to drop out and or choose alternate career options, whether within the legal profession or outside, at a very early stage, because obviously that could be for reasons of family demand, or there could be other exigencies that are happening because there is not enough family support. Whatever be the reasons, that does happen at a very early stage. At a very senior stage, I would say, once you've crossed that barrier, if you have the right family support, for example, I have a huge support at home, which leads me to, spend my many hours in office rather than at home. I had a baby last year, but within 2 months of having the baby, I was sitting in office and working even during COVID. So having done all of that, what happens is at a very senior stage, women also face the issue of going and doing the networking. right? What happens is, at senior levels in all organizations, it's mostly men who occupy the senior positions. When you go out there and you want to network with men, there is a certain level of inhibition. It may happen, it may not happen, and it's that comfort that you feel with certain people around you, or a discomfort that you feel with people, with different people around you. So these kind of factors also do make a difference. While I must say, and that things are becoming much more professional now, it is much more easy to walk into somebody's office and network and talk about work and discuss work and get work. But yeah, there were times when it wasn't as easy. Now things are more personal. You can it's easier to approach. But yes, it's taken a while, and there is still miles to go, I would say.
So what about the fact that there are targets at law firms, and does that sort of discourage women to move to senior positions and generally drop out at senior associate, PA level?
Yes, absolutely. So as I said, a lot of women drop out at early stages only because of the fact that, there is that stress of meeting targets, or, or competing with your other peers, maybe men or maybe women, aggressive women in the profession. But that is certainly there. And I have so many friends who were fantastic lawyers, but they chose to not pursue active practice profiles, but move to
I've been there and faced that. 18 of us had joined Khaitan. I was just discussing this with that 18 of us joined, and now I think I'm the only surviving lawyer, women lawyer. When in 2010 batch we had joined as 18 lawyers, out of which 10 were women, and all of the other ones extremely good. They were all fantastic people, and yes, it does hurt you a bit when you think that the profession has lost them and what they could have brought to the profession. So thank you for that so much, Rachika. Now I just wanted to ask Sandhya, what do you think that how can corporates narrow down this gender pay gap? What do you think should they do? I mean, are there some policies they should lay down? Is it a culture change, and how should they go about it?
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely energized by the conversations that have been happening here. So just to go back to your earlier question on the fundamental cause for gender pay gap, right? I don't know if you read this LinkedIn report which said that 37% women felt that they've lost out on opportunities, but only 20% men felt that women had lost out on opportunities. So there lies the reason. We don't have decision makers who feel that women are losing out on opportunities. So unless you take them on the journey, they are never going to appreciate what's happening. And my personal belief is there has never been a moment in recent history like COVID where men actually have a ringside view of what women are going through, because men are at home, men are having to participate in chores, men are again having to, so I think this is the time to have these accelerated conversations, but also make changes. So coming back to what can, companies do, I think a lot, right? I mean, at the time of hiring, what happens, I'm just giving the Nielsen example as well. At the time of hiring, what happens is campus recruitment, let's assume everyone's taken on the same band. But as we all know, typically when they reach the maternity life cycle, that's where the ball really drops. That's where women really sometimes are not able to come back and all of that. That's the point in time where companies can really do a deep dive, look at, they can conduct gender pay gap studies to see what's happening. We had done that a couple of years ago. 2019, we had done that, and we gave a confirmation that we have, in a parity, at least in South Asia. We are going to do that again now, because this is the absolute right moment to do that, because 85%, I mean, you know that, right? I mean, there's been enough studies which says that 89% felt that they've been adversely affected by the pandemic. So we definitely need to do that. Second is to check your own biases, right? I mean, your managers, sometimes they feel that, and this is, I'm being very honest, right? Sometimes they feel, oh, this is double income family, right? Oh, those are the biases that you really need to check, which is where sensitization plays a huge role, in, how you can sort of correct those, biases, thereby ensuring gender parity. First, like I said, you're hiring. Second is to ensure that you do deep dive into your own, to check biases and to ensure that there have been no gaps per se, like, to correct if people have left out on, maternity, leave and all of that. Third is to ensure like transparency. I mean, commit to the board that this is what we've done. This is what the actions are. If there is a gap, acknowledge it and also make a statement that, we will remedy it, right? These are some of the actions, but most importantly, I think culture plays a very, very big role in all of this in organization, right? And when I say culture, do you have a flexible policy? And I can talk from a Nielsen perspective. Nielsen has a very flexible policy. It has always had it. And, therefore, slipping into a COVID situation was very easy for us. We always had a work from home, so there was no question of really women being left out in the race, really, right? We had people doing global roles sitting in India. We had everywhere. I mean, the way people servicing Canada, whatever, sitting in Baroda. So having that sort of a culture really, really, really helps accelerate the growth. So one is you can check your policies. Second is you can really do a deep dive in terms of, hiring, in terms of when the bonus and the merits happen, and then make sure that you make the commitment to the board that, there is indeed no disparity. Yeah. So just some thoughts there.
No, makes a lot of sense. And Sandhya, I think transparency is really important, which you mentioned, because, if you have to be transparent, you will have to be objective. And if you have to be objective, you will somehow internally come up with the right answer for yourself. And when you do that, you will definitely help everyone that you're supervising, feel a lot more secure and comfortable, and therefore they'll stick on. As people say that you don't choose companies, you choose the right boss, right? So
yeah, just one more point. I would say that, companies also, you see many women in companies, sometimes you don't choose revenue generating roles, or you're sometimes in functions, but there is a perception that, revenue generating roles, okay, they are sort of eligible for X bonus or whatever. So you have to break the bias. You have to bring the lens of what is this individual contributing, not in terms of having generalizations of functions or, revenue generating tools. So all these, holistic lens is very important to keep actually, so just.
Yes, absolutely agree. And now let's see, Amrita, what do you think? What can law firms do, or what should the law firms do to sort of close this gender pay gap? Like, you have some tools or instruments or thoughts to share with us?
Sure. So first, thank you for having me. And in terms of law firms, and I think it applies to corporates also, I think in the first place, and specifically in context of law firms, I think it's a two-pronged approach. First, when you talk about mindset change, now see, I think it needs to be both places. One is a policy of integration. Exactly the factors we were talking about right now. Work from home. Now, I don't understand why it needs to be, because ultimately all individual brings different things to the table, and you can't just measure it by revenue. There are other factors also. Work from home is a policy you can have for everyone. You don't need to single out women or not make anyone feel that this is special or this is because of which there should be a difference in revenue or anything. It's fine. Everybody can do work from home, have a consistent policy, say whatever standards you want to say. Say, if you want to say that once a month you can do work from home, that's fine. Just apply to everyone. I think that will policies, unless you start integrating them, it won't work. Which is why I think some of these things need to be looked at in a gender neutral perspective. So everybody is at the level playing field. There are some policies, of course, which we will have specifically for women. For example, lactating women. Yes, they need a little bit of flexibility in terms of working hours, working style. Yeah, give it to them. Just have a clear policy, be transparent about it and give it. I don't think there's any concern on that. And second, in terms of facilities, I think it's very important for law firms to step up and provide childcare facilities in office. I think it will play a big role in women staying on. It does give you, personally, I have a son 2 years back. I know the most important person, I say it as a joke to everybody, the most important person in my life is my nanny, honestly. Because it is the most important person, otherwise it won't work for me. Which is why I think that in terms of approach, you need to practically doing that solution, do that. Work from home, again, I think COVID made us realize that you can actually work from home. And exactly the point Sandhya was saying. How does it matter where you're working from? As long as you're putting in the work product, and digital now makes it possible for you to connect, learn and work together. Just implement it as a policy across the firm. Compensation, again. I think it'll always be a combination of factors in my mind, which is most of it will be objective, but there will be a certain amount of flexibility which will be there, or about discretionary factors. I think at least in terms of the objective criteria, it is important to set out what exactly are those criteria, how are they being measured against people, and while at the same time remembering revenue is not the only factor. There are different factors. You need to give recognition and importance to all, and different individuals will bring different things to the table. Let's respect and recognize that. And the other thing which I think which works well, and at least I've seen that work, support groups, and I use that term a little loosely. Support groups within law firms. I know we have informal groups where women go out for just a drink or coffee once in a while, once in 6 months or 3 months, just to generally chat about things. I think it helps to sort of have those places where you can vent, because sometimes it's just venting, and it's good to get that out as well. And it gives you exposure to what's going on and what are the kind of issues others are facing within the law firm and also across other groups. So I think that's another thing which really helps. It also, like, I know I've benefited from mentorship from my seniors, and there are times where I have struggled, where I have wondered whether this is the right choice or wrong choice in terms of both how my career is going, and it has benefited me. So I think it makes sense to keep that sort of system in place. It may not be so formalized, but it's a good support group and system to have someone to chat with and bounce your thoughts off.
Yes, Amrita, I think absolutely agree with you. And, I've been a really strong supporter of the cause Women for Women. And, how generally, the perception is women are always pitted against each other and they're always competing with each other, and they never support another woman because they want to enjoy their unique position in senior management and not help other women rise because they want to be the first woman who ever did this and the second, and don't have anyone else enter. And I think, even if that is true, I don't know whether that perception is true, but if it is true, I think all of us need to work really hard to break that perception and ensure that women have a women code going on, like the bro code amongst men. So absolutely agree with support.
Meenal, I wonder if it's a man who started that theory. Because it's time to stop that narrative now. It's high time to stop that narrative. I strongly believe time has come, because we have enough examples where women are uplifting each other, but I think this has got amplified beyond. So it's upon all of us to stop that narrative. It's something I strongly feel. Yeah. Sorry.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely agree. And, we all need to step up and ensure that this narrative is sort of completely it's off the table, because and even if this bias is there in any of the women, it is very important to just talk about it, because when you talk about it, you can check it. And when you can, because all of these biases are unconscious. No one's actually doing it actively. So if we talk about it, you're like, oh, did I at some point think about it like that? And if I did, I shouldn't. And, I think that really helps. So a conversation definitely helps. And, Shweta, just wanted to know, do you think that, gender gap is sort of larger in India, or do you think it's more like a global problem? And if so, why do you think that? I mean, what's the reason for whatever thought you have?
So, of course, gender gap is, a worldwide problem, and I have been speaking on international forums also, and I've heard the women even globally talking about this. So it is not only peculiar to India. In India, there are, again, as I started with saying, is that there are various socio-economic reasons which make us a little more unique. So, of course, it is a little more that we have felt. So, and if you see the dichotomy that we live with, we worship women as goddesses of power, of courage, even for money, for that matter. But then even then, the fact of the matter still is that there is a certain amount of gender gap, which is gender pay gap, which is existing here. So one if we look at the micro reasons for why all of this is, you have to look at first aspect is that there is a social and structural oppression of women that we have to face, and that starts right from the childhood, right from the time when we when we take birth. I mean, that is in itself a first challenge. With the kind of laws that we had to bring about for the sex determination is a matter of truth that we have to live with. So imagine the kind of biases that women actually go through. Some of us here talking about it are still more privileged as compared to many women who have to actually face those kind of social and structural operations through. And in fact, in one of the earlier sessions, I heard Mini talk about the help who comes and who works for 12 hours at her home and then goes back and works even at her house. So, I mean, imagine the kind of, oppression that women are suffering. The second also is that because we have to handle a lot of complex issues which range right from access to education to social stigma to the kind of challenges that we have with respect to as a femininity that we have which is inherent in us, which also makes us a little lesser understood as compared to men. Then there are other reasons which are also in relation to the root cause, which is the system of patriarchy that we have within our country. I mean, that is so ingrained as compared to any other country that makes a lot of difference, where the decision making authority right from the top, whether it is about at your childhood is your father, as you grow up is your husband, and then is your son. So that in itself are few reasons why women have not been able to come out of the challenges and be able to be there. Then I also feel that because and more so in the unorganized sector as compared to the organized sector, it is the women who are routinely been paid significantly less. I think I have been hearing about it not only in the agriculture sector, in the labor sector. Even now, I mean, if you look at the government's pay scale that has been provided for women laborer as compared to a men laborer, the amount is different. So why is that so? So are we looked upon as lesser, lesser in terms of strength, lesser in terms of having the ability to deliver? So I think there is the top-down concern that I have here, and it is also the reason why women have not been able to do as well. And of course, we are not even leaving our cities safe, our organizations safe. To when you reach up to the office and you have to hear those lewd remarks. Again, not at the senior level, but at when we started our professions, we have all gone through some of those incidents, and that also is one of the reasons why we try and keep ourselves in a shell, not go out, not network, not socialize. In fact, if you think about any conference that is happening and there are 4 men standing and a woman has to go and approach them, have you realized the handicap that you feel in going and having that breakthrough? And even if you are able to go and approach them, the kind of look that you get in the first instance, it is only after a certain amount of time that you are accepted there. So I think there are a lot of biases which we have lived with, and especially in our country as compared to any other country, and that is the primary reason why probably we still are not able to demand the equal pay as compared to men.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I was speaking to one of my colleagues who works in the UK, and she said that yes, there used to be all of these issues, but we are really close now. As to solving all of this. And I was, these problems did exist, but people are addressing them. And I think it's time for all of us to now address this. And, at least like people like us, we are slightly in a decision-making sort of a position. So we can really, really solve this, because it's going to solve only bit by bit. It's not going to there's a theory which they say either you solve it completely or you don't solve it at all. But I don't subscribe to that theory at all, because everything can only be solved bit by bit. So if all of us put in our bits, I mean, maybe we can't create a sea, but we'll create a lake. But even that's good enough. So absolutely agree. Thank you so much for sharing your views on this. Amrita, you want to hop in? Come on.
I wanted to add something, and I find it very interesting because this question has actually been, we've discussed it, that is there internationally law, and I'm talking in context of law firms specifically, but I think it holds true across sectors also, because you always have commercial teams involved, about are women better off in foreign law firms? I actually strongly disagree, and I'll tell you why. I've been working for over 14 years, and I worked on a lot of international teams which have a lot of the magic circle, the big circle firms. I haven't come across a single deal where the woman partner is leading the deal. There have been women partners on portions, like for the tax partner, for the tax portion there is, or for a certain portion, like a specialized field. But honestly, I can't recollect a deal where a woman partner has led the deal internationally. And actually, even from the commercial side, I can't actually remember a woman leading the commercial team as well. They've been part of the teams, and there have been women on the teams. I'm not saying they're not, but leading, I actually don't remember. So I am not so convinced with the whole argument. Of course, India has its own unique issues, exactly what Shweta said. There are other issues which we face, but I'm not so convinced of the argument that actually the developed countries or the other countries like US or someone are much better off than us.
No, US can't be, because they just had the Kamala Harris is the first, and we've had many. So yes, no, I don't agree that US is, and just like you, even I have faced that many of the transactions are not mostly led by women. I think other than when I was doing a deal in Denmark, the Scandinavia region, I think that is super chilled, and I think it's chilled, literally chilled. But yeah, in general, I think that there is some truth to the fact that they have really worked hard to sort of close this bias. But of course, a lot of developed countries are lagging, so it's a global problem. And I think as a community, it's our duty to sort of come up and talk about this whole issue. And I think we all can educate each other and learn from each other and create a difference. I completely agree. Thank you so much, Amrita, for your views.
One more aspect to this, Meenal, is just to give you an example of the kind of bias that I had to face initially. Now much water has flown since then, but then initially there was a matter that was to be handled. I was 10 years into the profession, and the client comes to the office, and he discusses the matter, and then he looks at me up and down, and then he says, "Madam, who's going to argue this matter for the team?" I said, "I am a litigator, and I would be leading this matter." And he says, "Do you not have any male lawyer who can actually argue the matter?" So I was baffled initially. I did not know how to respond to that. I said, but it does not matter to the judge. He says, "Madam, it does. It does, because your level of aggressiveness as compared to a male lawyer would be much different. And I want somebody extremely aggressive to argue this matter." So, those, and then there have been series of experiences like this, but that was one of the first which really, set me thinking on, is it so true that, women lack aggressiveness, or women lack anything anywhere for that matter to be able to succeed in any profession? So not just about transactions, I think it is true about litigation, and therefore you can see there to be very few, successful women litigators as solicitor generals or additional solicitor generals. There are very few, and that also with the conscious mind that the government is now putting them in those positions.
And Shweta, the thing is that you're saying that gentleman told you that you're not aggressive enough because you're a woman, and if you had spoken even slightly with your tone a little oh my God, she's so aggressive. So there's no right way, right? You talk softly, you're not aggressive, and you talk slightly in a higher tone, you're aggressive. Sure, I don't know what is it that is expected, right? What are you supposed to do? And what's your tone? to be normal. I don't know that. I don't think there's any tone that you can speak in, and there's not like a fallback that's going to come on you. So yes. So Rachika, now tell me something. Do you think there are any laws in India that can tackle this issue? Is there a statutory framework? And then maybe we can talk about its implementation, but let's first talk about, is there any statutory framework that sort of addresses all these issues that women are facing?
I think, Meenal, the fact that you said that we'll talk about implementation separately, and all of us sort of, laughed, means by itself that while there is something in place, and there has been for quite a while, its implementation has been completely, shoddy, to say the least. Of course, we had Equal Remuneration Act, which is now, been subsumed into the code, the wage code. But the problem has been, earlier the problem was really the implementation, the fact that how do you differentiate, or how do you say that it is same or similar work, and what is the effort being put in, what is the skill, was the skills different, it wasn't clearly defined ever. Now that it's been subsumed within the code, the entire legislation has been encompassed into one section of the code, which is which is very sad to say the least, honestly, because there is more. This is an issue which people have been talking about, breaking the glass ceiling. There is an entire book that Sheryl Sandberg has written on, and which is Lean In. We talk about Kamala Harris becoming the first vice president in US. Now all of these things happening, and people recognizing the fact that women are not being given their share, so much dialogue happening, and now that we come up with this new code, we don't give Equal Remuneration Act its due place, which is absolutely sad. And and that also has a limited application, as we all know, and for some people beyond who do not qualify as workers, and
Yes.
the definition of workers itself and the remuneration qualification for becoming a worker is so limited, so small, that a lot of women are just left to negotiating for themselves what they should get for the work they are doing. And as previously most of us have said, Shweta has also pointed out that probably we also somewhere lack that aggression and lack the capacity or self-confidence to go out and say, no, I demand more. And I deserve more, and I should be getting more for the work that I'm doing. Unfortunately, some of us don't have that kind of confidence in ourselves, and we think that probably they're right in judging me in what they're offering me. There's a lot of self-doubt, and we need a lot of support from everybody around us. And just before the session, Sandhya and I were messaging each other, and we were talking about the fact that there is one thing to say that women should pull other women, but we need equal participation from men as well in this. And honestly, most of my superiors in my career have been men, and they have been fantastic people. They have always given me the appreciation and the encouragement that was required. I never had to talk about my remuneration with any of them. If they saw the potential, they saw the dedication, I got it, honestly. But as a woman, as a senior woman in the profession, if I could call myself that, I do try and see that there is, when a lot of times what happens is that when we are hiring, a lot of profiling happens for women. For example, if I would look to hire somebody within the bracket of 4 to 5 years of experience, and if that woman is married for 3 years, the HR would come and tell me, Rachika, are you sure she might be planning family? And I was like, I've had like really difficult and rude discussions with the HR in those circumstances, and I've said that I'll manage. Please, she's the best. Amongst the people I've interviewed, I don't care. Please stop profiling. And those are the difficult situations women have to face even today. So that's really unfortunate. I think the husbands or the men can take equal burden. We should talk about similar kind of leaves for men when they have babies, so that women can come out after a certain. Obviously, women also need to take rest when they have family. But after that, if they want to come out and they want to work. I came out and I started working much earlier than my maternity leave expired. And if I'm willing, and if I have support from my husband and from my family, then why not? As in, I don't think that women can be burdened in these circumstances. They are, we are all equally deserving, hardworking, and intelligent.
Absolutely.
I just want to add one thing. Sorry, Meenal. I just want to add one thing to what Rachika was saying.
Yes.
At the same time, I think you need to be conscious both ways. Just because someone took 6 months of their maternity leave does not mean that person is less dedicated. The person wanted a break, they wanted to take 6 months, take it. It doesn't take away anything from their dedication or sincerity to work. I think that also becomes a reverse sort of issue with sometimes I have noticed that. And the profiling which Rachika is saying, it's so true. Friends who have told me this, that they have gone for interviews where the company policy clearly says no difference, no distinction between race, color, everything, gender, every word you can find, it will be there. And they have literally been asked in the interview, are you planning to get married?
That's right.
How is that relevant? How is that relevant? I don't understand. Are you planning a baby? I can't even understand how someone can ask that question. That is so personal. How can you ask that question? And even if that person is, how does that matter? You'll figure it out, right? Which is why, and going back to what Rachika said, I completely agree. The mindset thing is very important, which is why I keep saying it has to be a policy of integration. Yes, men can also take that leave. What's wrong with it? The work from home can apply to everybody. You don't need to make it women-centric or anything. You need to be able to integrate, because I think that will really help in changing the mindset and the unconscious bias which most people have. It will really help in that.
Absolutely. But you know what, I just want to share something with the panel, and maybe, you know, what I'm going to say is going to sound harsh. And I was discussing this with Amrita earlier, when this whole maternity leave was increased from 3 to 6, everyone was so joyous, and, people were writing on LinkedIn that they're so happy that India has increased the period, because that's the support that women need, and that's the support that women need, and completely agree. But you know what, I thought that really sort of impacts the hireability of women, because, now instead of 3 months, employers are thinking, oh my God, 6 months of free leave. Free paid leave, right? And I was like, this is only going to make women more unhireable, because that's the only way employers can check it, because once hired, they can't do anything about it as per law. And I was like, this law should be gender neutral. Anyone has a baby, it should be both men and women, because then the employer is looking at them equally, right? So, I mean, I don't know how it should be, whether, you can say that 3 months the women will take, and then 3 months the men will take. Maybe if you don't want to give 6 months altogether, but there has to be another way. I think the solution that was found by the Institute, I mean, I sort of do not agree with it, but I don't know. And it'll be so great to hear. I mean, in the panel, do you think that this unpopular opinion of mine makes any sense? And maybe, Sandhya, you have anything to say about that?
No, just on this point of the hiring that you mentioned, right? So I also had diversity and inclusion for NielsenIQ. So it's so important what I think Amrita and Rachika mentioned, which is you have all these policies, but in practice, there are these very quiet questions that are asked, or subtle messages that are given. Oh, where are you in your life stage and all of that. So we have really committed to sensitizing and training the managers in terms of how interviews should be done. And more importantly, what we're doing is a step ahead as a D&I team, is to have these conversations with talent acquisitions teams in terms of what is it that you're really hearing? What are people doing in terms of actually conducting those interviews? And let's face it, there are challenges in all companies, and that's the feedback we're trying to get and work on it. Because you can have all these fantastic policies. I will hire 3 people from Pride community. I'll hire 3 people from adept is mentally, or there's physical disablement or whatever, so but actually what are the challenges they're facing on the ground? Unless you relay that back, and unless you put that back to your board and your leadership team, and you commit to it and have a conversation, you're not going to be able to work on it and address it, right? So that's just something that I wanted to sort of add. But yeah, I mean, your thought about having paternity leave, I mean, I was just going to say that's the conversation that the entire conference should be dedicated to. I mean, the next topic should only be on paternity leave and what is it that we can do, how can we break it down? I mean, if you ask me. Rest, we will be talking about these topics till cows come home. I mean, this is something I've strongly believed in. This is where our country will unfortunately keep, lagging, because our mindsets do not match. Or most companies, they think 5 days is fantastic. There is companies like Zomato, which have actually, taken progressive measures. Unless you do that, and unless you normalize conversations, like, if I can just give an example, we've actually had conversations where we want men to talk about what are the chores they're doing, share pictures, talk about it, sensitize, humanize the conversations. I mean, we are actually putting together like a briefing note for leaders in terms. So just as an example, we did a study internally in terms of COVID and its impact on women. As an outcome of all that we heard, we're putting together a briefing note in terms of what should we really do in the workplace to make it, amenable for women. What should we do? And most of it is all sensitivity exercises, really. Most of it is a small changes you can make, whether you're a woman leader or a male leader, doesn't matter. So yeah, I mean, I think I've probably said quite a lot, but just few things I think which make a big difference in terms of how you hire, retain, and ensure that they continue in the right sort of the parity is maintained, I would say.
Right. And Amrita, just the last sort of bit, and just to sort of bring the conversation to a close. I mean, how do you see the future of gender gap pay playing out? I mean, how do you think, where are we going to be in 10 years? Do you think we're going to be here, or do you think there are ways we're going to be able to tackle it, and 10 years later we'll have the same panel discussing something a little better than what we're discussing now?
No, I assure you we won't be having the same discussion. We would have moved forward because I think we've discovered our aggressive side. So we are going to demand for it. I think we have a long way to go. But yeah, things, and I honestly believe that they're happening at a more subtle level, and it will take time to take the mindset change. But yeah, things are moving ahead. And actually, to be very honest, we are having a lot more of these conversations, and I completely agree with what Sandhya said. Ultimately, it's a question of being sensitive about it. If you are conscious of it, you will take action to fix it. Problem is, most of us are not even conscious about it, that this is an issue. That's the problem. And a lot of it is not coming from the place of trying to distinguish or make a distinction. It's just that you're not conscious. I don't think half the people realize when they ask these intrusive questions, they're offensive. I don't think they've realized that. So I think we will definitely have made progress, because we will demand for it. There is no option. We have to go ahead. We can't look back now. So hopefully 10 years later, we will have a very different conversation.
Oh yes, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
I absolutely think that, in 10 years, you and I and, Rachika, Sandhya and Shweta will all be talking a little bit about the progress that has been in the last 10 years, because women are taking a stand and standing up for themselves. And on top of that, we are doing it along with men, because just you and I talking about this doesn't solve the issue, right? We as we have to all work like a team, because many times it's the men who are making decisions for women, and many times it should be that the women are making decisions for men, and it should be just on the basis of your talent and probably your competency. So yes, that's what I hope that it is going to be like. Any closing thoughts from any of these formidable women? Please, most welcome. Anything Shweta, anything Rachika, Sandhya?
Just one thought on that, what you asked, which is the future. So there are, I think, two things. I'm talking from a corporate perspective. One is your organizational commitment, and I think we spoke a bit about it, which is transparency. What are you really doing? Are you checking your biases and all of that? And also building the culture, which is very important. And building the culture, I would say, sensitizing. You can have a D&I team. You can have a women in, like a women ERG group. But you need to have male allies there, because they empathize and understand the problems, right? That's most important, because I've heard from so many male colleagues that we didn't even know these problems existed. So that's one. And then, the organization goes along with the journey. Second is self-commitment, right? I mean, we spoke about whether aggressive, I would say assertive. You can be assertive about what you really want. And that comes with, putting together like leadership coaching, maybe mentoring that women really need, some negotiation skills, all of that. And also this whole, putting together a platform where women can hear other stories, sometimes, just helping them address their own guilt, like self-limiting beliefs. So there are a couple of interventions, you can do to support the women. And there are a couple of interventions which the organization can do at an organizational level. So I would say that is probably the path ahead. And I would say no better time. Like I said, COVID, we've never seen the challenges so up close and personal. So this is probably the best time to have these accelerated conversations. Yeah, just that from my side.
Thank you so much to the wonderful panel for sharing your thoughts, and thank you BW World for initiating this really relevant conversation. Over to you.